What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be reviewing The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery, starring Dev Patel, Joel Edgerton, Alicia Vikander and Sean Harris. Now before we start, The Green Knight is one of the texts that I've studied at university for 2 years. It's called Sir Gawain and the Green Knight originally, but it's this Middle English 14th century text centering around kind of chivalric romance, and it's basically this study of kind of knighthood, manhood, the code of honor, the code of like nobility, and what makes a knight as the film is. But there's some very big kind of plot changes and that are naturally going to happen in an adaptation. But I knew from the trailer that, you know, it wasn't going to be 100% faithful to the text. But I was kind of surprised by how little the film focuses on these hunts that take place while Sir Gawain in this film is residing at the Lord's castle. He's called Lord Bertilac in the text. But the original poem is very much centered around these three hunts that the Lord goes to. I think the first hunt he catches a deer, the second a boar, and the third the fox. In the poem, the animal chases are so vivid, so visceral, you kind of spend a lot of time getting into the heads of these creatures and the fear they're experiencing. And in many ways, it's supposed to parallel Sir Gawain's own fears, his own kind of insecurities and self-doubts, that ultimately haunt him in that final encounter with the Green Knight where he flinches at first. And it's kind of fascinating because it leans into the bestial side of man, these kind of innate fears and the predatory nature of existence. Whereas in the films, the hunts are very much peripheral. They're not the main focus of it. And the other big thing I was surprised at was that in the poem, the lord of the castle, Sir Bertilac, is actually the Green Knight in disguise. So the two are linked. And it turns out to be this elaborate ruse by Morgana Le Fay, and it's all kind of linked into that Arthurian legend. So I get why obviously it doesn't lean into that. But the film is its own beast, and I'm very happy to watch the film as a separate entity. Visually it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning, as you'd expect from a film that A24 kind of distribute. It's got such a distinct aesthetic and visual style, and it kind of keeps you hooked to the screen, even though the film is very slow. It is very slow, but it was kind of fascinating to watch him travel through this world and get a sense of the adventure that he's obviously been denied living in this kind of squalor. So the film is very much about self-discovery, and I think in that aspect it does really well. I think Dev Patel grounds the film in a really human way, and that's really essential because it's a very fantastical type of film, very strange. And it's definitely not going to be the type of film that, your average cinema goer is going to enjoy. You've got to have an appreciation for film as an art form, as a visual form. But it's definitely not something you're going to get fully on first watch either. There was a lot of stuff going on there, particularly in Sir Gawain's encounters as he's travelling to the Green Knight, that I need to go back and pay closer attention to, because there's probably a lot of implicit meanings to it. Although I maintain that visually you're glued to the screen, the pace is very lethargic. We're not in any kind of rush to get where we need to go, and that's fine. I just think the stuff that you're then kind of showing on screen needs to be a bit more engaging than what we got, which is where I think that the hunt sequences could have been a lot more engaging to kind of some of the scenes that we did get in the film. I think the Green Knight is a really kind of beautiful character. Again, linking to the visual style of the film, I think both the CGI and the kind of practicalities of his outfit and his whole appearance was absolutely fascinating to watch. It really annoys me actually in the text and in the film that we don't get more of him. He kind of bookends the film and the text. But I think one thing I really like about this film is the ending, like the final 15-20 minutes or so, that starts to lead you down one direction of, what happens if Sir Gawain does give in to his fears, does flee. I thought that was a really fascinating insight into this trajectory of where the character could go before cutting back to him ultimately flinching and having that fear and then resolving himself to fulfill his oath. I thought that was a really fascinating way to approach this conclusion. I really like what they did with Reynard the Fox as a spoken character. I thought that was a fascinating relationship. There's a couple of really beautiful long takes in this film where we just follow Sir Gawain leaving the castle with these expansive backdrops around him, or we see him kind of gallop through a the aftermath of a battlefield, while some like scavenger talks to him and gives him directions, that really contribute to the kind of surroundings that he's in and the sense of the journey and the scale of how small he is going on this massive long adventure, that I think that really serve the film well. I think it's probably going to become a Christmas watch for me. You know, it's set around Christmas time, and I just found it a beautiful watch. It felt like I was watching a medieval poem come to life. You know, a lot of kind of ambiguities, a lot of complexities, while also being a very straightforward tale about honour and self-righteousness. And I think this film captured the tone of the poem really well, even though it deviates narratively quite a bit. So yeah, it's definitely not a kind of like medieval fantasy epic. It's medieval, it's fantastical, and it is epic, but in a much different way. It's very grounded. It's heavily reliant on visuals, but the visuals sell character, themes, spiritualities rather than spectacle. You know, this is the type of film that we need more of. It's a very authentic voice, a very refreshing tale, and it doesn't just pander to the brain-dead audiences of blockbusters. It makes you think, it forces you to engage with it. It's not the type of film you can sit flicking through a game on your phone on. I really hope you guys had fun watching this film and really engaged with it and kind of talked about it afterwards. It's one of those films that will incite discussion. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, comment, let me know what you thought, and I will see you for my next review.